Does that make sense? It goes from being an asset on our books to somebody's private books. That, in essence, again, if the Fed were to directly sell a Treasury security to you, you would give the Fed money, that money would disappear. Right? So the same thing has the same impact. Here's the challenge. Fed's buying all these mortgage-backed securities that are being issued right now. Mortgage rates are 3%. The coupon rates on those mortgage-backed securities are probably around 3%. Fed's buying those things. 5 years from now, the Fed really wants to put the brakes on inflation. They can't just let this thing run off. It's a 30-year mortgage. They have to sell it. Mortgage rates at that time are what? 7%. Coupon rates on these things, 6%. They've got something that's paying a 3% coupon and market rates are 6%. The market value of those mortgage-backed securities will have fallen dramatically, which means the Fed will have to sell even more of them to have the same monetary stimulus that they want to do. In essence, the purchase of long-term assets by the Fed right now, it's my belief that what it's really going to do is make it harder for the Fed in the future to put the brakes on inflation. Does that make sense? It's handicapping ourselves in the future to deal with the current problems that we've got today. I'm not saying it's the wrong choice for them to make. I'm just saying that it's not a choice without some consequences. And I think the folks in the Fed who are doing it are fully aware of that.
Is there any stop loss mechanism in that at all?
Not that I'm aware of.
Did you ask?
I'm sorry?
Not a stop loss mechanism.
Is there a stop loss mechanism? Is there some way that they've done something? I mean, I think it's more, the present problem is more important and acute to deal with, and we'll deal with the long-term consequences of it when we get there. Yeah?
Sounds a lot like people getting bond rates because it can be lower for now and they're going to refinance later, so they're going to worry about it later. It sounds exactly the same.
And you know what? It's the same thing with stimulus programs, proposed by the government itself. It's that the current economic problems are such that we need to deal with this now, and we'll deal with the long-term consequences of the increased debt in the future. In some ways, it's all part and parcel of the same issue, right? Long-term, there are some very strong fundamentals that will put a lot of inflationary pressure, because for the long-term budget issues for the federal government are severe, and there's just entitlements, and in particular Medicare is the 800-pound gorilla that nobody even wants to acknowledge is there, right? It's the gorilla in the room that Congress has not had any success. I mean, even the things that have been thrown out as being too radical didn't even address the problems of the growth of Medicare. And it really is this growth of these things that's the real issue. And so the commitments of the federal government to spend money in the future are such that either the federal government has to default on those commitments, or it will have to default on its debt, or the Fed will have to allow it to inflate it away. And the other way you can deal with it is if you just print money, right? You just pay for those things with money that doesn't exist. Inflation goes up, and that makes the value of those obligations go down, so then it becomes manageable. And there are a lot of economists who actually argue we should do that. I don't happen to be one of them, but those pressures are going to be very intensive there going forward. Now, that's not a problem that's going to be here in 2 years, 3 years, but 5 and 10 years down the road, that's a big one. And by the way, when I've talked to real estate investor groups, my personal view, as I've kind of looked through this and thought about, okay, so how do I, as just this individual, prepare myself for it? Other than moving money offshore, which I'm not really able to do. If you're rich, you've got more options than the rest of us do, right? In inflation, hard assets retain their value, right? real assets, meaning real estate, as one of those. One possibility is kind of a debt crisis problem for the federal government, kind of like the Greek problem, but if it were to happen with the U.S., I mean, it's a worldwide problem, right? It's a huge problem. To me, free and clear real estate is probably as good a place domestically as you can hold your money to be protected no matter what would happen there. And the reason I say free and clear, if it's just inflation, debt's a great thing, right? You let inflation wipe away your debt obligations, right? But if it's a debt crisis and there's severe economic turmoil and I have a mortgage on my property, I'm obligated to make my mortgage payment, and if I can't get people to rent my property, or I can't get enough rents to pay that, I could lose the property in that debt crisis situation. If I hold it free and clear, I'm protected on the inflation side, and I can just lower my, if I hold it free and clear, I can lower my rents to wherever the market clears, and I can still keep me some income that's generating from that and protect that asset. So I'm not saying to be a big, master guru on this or anything, but that's the conclusion that I've drawn, is that I suppose if there's anything I could do to protect myself, it would be to pay off my real assets as quickly as I can, so that I'm free and clear and have flexibility in the future. Yeah?
Artificially low interest rates. How does that get hammers when they're no longer?
It's really interesting. So that kind of brings us to where mortgage rates are right now, which is stupid low, right? I mean, there's no way we're sitting here with 30-year fixed mortgage rates sitting at about 4%. There's no way mortgage rates can stay that low. And I talk with financial institutions and others. I don't understand who's buying and who's holding these mortgages in their portfolio. Because rates have to go up. They can't stay this low. And it's reasonable to expect that the mortgages that we're originating today are going to have a longer average life than mortgages have had in the past. After all, when mortgage rates go up to 6% again, how many of you are going to be eager to refinance your mortgages that you got in, paid a couple points and got in at 3 3/4%? Right? Why would you want to do that? Unless you had to move or something else, you're going to keep that mortgage. So I think average life of mortgage is going to extend. That's going to lower the value of those mortgages. And there could be some problems for financial institutions and others that are holding a lot of these mortgages when rates go up. A big chunk of it's being held by the Fed and the federal government through Fannie and Freddie. So that's just an unacknowledged debt obligation of the federal government. Your question is, when mortgage rates go up, is that going to create some other problems for homeowners and for others?
But all the interest rates are way artificially low.
I think the short answer is it's only going to affect the people who hold the debt. So the lenders that are holding the debt, they will lose value when market interest rates go up. For us as borrowers, I don't think when interest rates go back up, then I think they'll go up into the range of, say, 5.5% to 7.5%. I think that's a normal range for interest rates in a good economy with low inflation. Okay? I don't think mortgage rates at 6% are going to have any significant impact on, say, housing markets compared to where they are now. I just don't. The only reason they're so artificially low is because of the strong fear factor. So they're not really stimulating additional people. They're not creating really any great additional affordability. I think that if we were to get back to a normal economy with 6% interest rates, that would be better than where we are right now for the housing market. Did I do anything to answer? It would be your, here's what you want to do. Look at your, if you own stock of depository, of financial institutions, figure out what kind of mortgage holdings they have. That would be the question, because if they got a lot of long-term mortgage holdings, you may want to think about selling that stock.